back to my next space. Today we are gonna have a look at modern period and postmodern period. And let's get started. We can begin with modern period. It was the period after the outbreak of First World War. It started by 1901 and lasted till 1965. That is, the period witnessed the First World War as well as the Second World War. And the people of this period lost faith in God. People believed nothing without proof. Anxiety and frustration was an important phenomenon of this period. Marxism and socialism began to develop during this period, and Russian Revolution took place also in this period. And people started showing interest in psychology during this period, and Freud, the Sigmund Freud, wrote the interpretation of dreams during the modern period. And there was power shift from Britain to USA. It's an important feature of this period. There were colonial wars, and the spread of education was also an important achievement of this period. The Education Act of 1870 was an important act of this period. And in this era that voting rights of women came. And in 1928, the Act of Equal Suffrage came. This all shaped the new period. Feminism came as a movement, or it developed to a movement during this period. Modern age was full of chaos, uncertainty, and disasters, and there was bloodshed everywhere. Moving to literary features, there was stream of consciousness, which was used by Virginia Woolf and James Joyce. Then pessimism, and there were so many literary movements like Dadaism, which rejected logic, reasons, and aestheticism of modern capitalist society. They express irrationality, nonsense, and protest in their work. Another literary movement was Imagism, pioneered by Ezra Pound. Next one is Surrealism, the movement in art and literature which focus on the unleashing of the creative potential of the unconscious mind. Next one is Cubism, show all the possible viewpoint of a man and object at once. Next one is Expressionism, that is, shows the subjective perspective. An artist tries to convey their emotion rather than reality. And next one is Symbolism. The artist or the writer used to express individual experience through symbols, example Wasteland. And the immortal novelist of modern period was James Joyce, Virginia Woolf, D.H. Lawrence, Joseph Conrad, Graham Greene, E.M. Forster, and Doris Lessing. And poets includes W.B. Yeats, T.S. Eliot, W.H. Auden, Seamus Heaney, Wilfred Owen, Dylan Thomas, and Robert Graves. And dramatists includes Tom Stoppard, G.B. Shaw, Samuel Beckett, Harold Pinter, etc. And there were war poets as well, like Wilfred Owen, Robert Brooke were considered as the war poets. Important works of Joseph Conrad includes All May Is Falling, Heart of Darkness, Mirrors of the Sea. And Joseph Conrad was a Polish-British writer. He was a master prose stylist who brought a non-English sensibility into English language. Next writer of this period was D.H. Lawrence. His works includes The White Peacock, his first novel, then The Trespasser, then The Rainbow, then Women in Love, then Kangaroo, then The Boy in the Bush, The Plumed Serpent, and Sons and Lovers, which was considered or believed as his semi-autobiographical work. Next important writer of this period was H.G. Wells. His works includes Time Machine, The Invisible Man, The War of the Worlds, The Wheels of Chance, The Sea Lady, etc. Next one is James Joyce, who was an Irish novelist. He contributed modernist avant-garde movement, and his short story collection was known as Dubliners. His famous work is The Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. Then another or the only play of James Joyce was or is Exiles. And he wrote Ulysses in the year 1922. Next writer of this period is Graham Greene. He worked as a reviewer in the Spectator, publication founded by Joseph Addison and Richard Steele. And Graham Greene's four major Catholic novels includes Right and Rock, The Power and the Glory, Heart of the Matter, The End of the Affair. Next one is J.M. Barrie, James Matthew Barrie, and his works includes A Kiss for Cinderella, Echoes of the War, Alice Hit by Fire, Quality Street, Peter Pan, Dear Brutus, What Every Woman Knows, etc. And he was a Scottish novelist. Then next one is Rudyard Kipling. He wrote Jungle Book, and his other works includes Eve, The White Man's Burden, Kim, The Elephant's Child, The Man Who Would Be King, etc. And next one is T.S. Eliot, who moved to England in the year 1914 when he was 25 years old for work and marriage, and he got Nobel Prize in Literature for pioneer contribution to present day poetry in the year 1948, and he proclaimed himself as classicist in literature, royalist in politics, and Anglo-Catholic in religion. And his famous works includes The Murder in the Cathedral, The Cocktail Party, The Confidential Clerk, The Eldest Statesman. And his poetry collection or poems includes Portrait of a Lady and Love Songs of J. Alfred Prufrock, and the famous work The Wasteland, then Journey of Magi, The Song of Simon, etc. Next one is G.B. Shaw or George Bernard Shaw, the only one who got Nobel Prize and Oscar together. He established London School of Economy. He was a critic before writing. He wrote more than 60 plays, and his famous plays includes Man and Superman, Saint John, and Back to Methuselah, etc. This one is E.M. Forster. He was a homosexual, and his novels includes Where Angels Fear to Tread, The Longest Journey, A Room with a View, Howard's End, A Passage to India, and Maurice. And his short stories includes The Celestial Omnibus and Other Stories, The Eternal Movement and Other Stories. And his collected stories includes The Story of a Panic, Other Kingdom, The Mission Stops, Mr. Andrews, Coordination, Purple Envelope, Helping Hand, The Life to Come, The Tongue, etc. And his other works includes Two Cheers for Democracy, Aspects of Democracy. One is Virginia Woolf. She was the pioneer to use the technique of stream of consciousness, and she wrote 9 novels altogether, and her famous works includes To the Lighthouse, which was an autobiographical work, then Mrs. Dalloway, very important work of her, then Orlando, then The Voyage Out, Night and Day, The Jacob's Room, A Room of One's Own. It is a very important famous work of her. Then The Waves, The Years, Between the Acts, and etc. And she was a member of Bloomsbury Group. And finally, the last one of this session is Samuel Butler. His famous works includes The Way of All Flesh, Darwin Among the Machines, then Irwin, the famous work of him. That's all about this period. That's the period of modern era. Then postmodern period. It was started by 1945 and it is still lasting. And that was the time after Second World War. After Second World War, Britain lost power and USA became the superpower. And there was a power shift, and Cold War between countries was an important feature of this period. There were global conflict, nuclear destruction, and genocide. And technological advancement were there, and space exploration as well. People accepted the fragmented and disoriented world. അതായത് ഫസ്റ്റ് വേൾഡ് വാർ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ മോഡേൺ പീരീഡിൽ സമയത്തായപ്പം ആളുകൾക്ക് അക്സെപ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്നു ബിക്കോസ് ദേ ആർ ഫേസിങ് ദിസ് ഫോർ ദ ഫസ്റ്റ് ടൈം. സോ ഇൻ ദ കേസ് ഓഫ് ദിസ് പോസ്റ്റ് മോഡേൺ പീരീഡ് ബ്ലഡ് ഷെഡും ഈ സഫറിങ്സും ലാക്ക് ഓഫ് ഫുഡും എവറി പ്രോബ്ലം ഉണ്ടായെങ്കിൽ കൂടെയും പീപ്പിൾ accepted the situation and they started to move on. പക്ഷെ മോഡേൺ പീരീഡിന് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഫസ്റ്റ് വേൾഡ് വാറിൻ്റെ സമയത്ത് എന്ന് വെച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ പീപ്പിളിന് അത് അക്സെപ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്നില്ലായിരുന്നു. എവർ ന്യൂ അറ്റ് ദിസ് ഏരിയ. ബട്ട് ഇൻ ദ കേസ് ഓഫ് പോസ്റ്റ് മോഡേൺ പീരീഡ് ഇറ്റ്സ് ഡിഫറെൻറ്റ്. ആൻഡ് മോഡേൺ ഇൻസിഡൻസ് ഓഫ് ദിസ് പീരീഡ് ഇൻക്ലൂഡ്സ് Theatre Act of 1968 which abolished censorship of the stage in Britain. Then theatre of absurdity developed during this period, which was influenced by Albert Camus' Myth of Sisyphus, and there were Angry Young Man, John Osberg's Look Back in Anger. Then there were so many confessional poetries. Then pastiche. Then intertextuality. Jean Rice's word sarcasm is an example of intertextuality. Then metafiction was another genre of this era. Ted Hughes was an important writer who used or who employed metafiction in his writings. Then another thing is temporal distortion. The feature of this is like this: story do not follow chronological order. Catch-22 by Joseph Heller is the best example of temporal distortion. Then there was magical realism, which show real world by adding magical elements. Salman Rushdie's Midnight's Children was an example or is an example of magical realism. Then faction is another literary device they use. That is, it is a clubbing of fact and fiction. Major writers of postmodern period includes Bram Stoker, who was the writer of Dracula. Then Christopher Sherwood, Somerset Maugham, Doris Lessing, Kingsley Amis, and the poets include Seamus Heaney, Ted Hughes, Philip Larkin, and the playwrights includes Harold Pinter, Tom Stoppard, etc. Joseph Heller, John Fowles, etc. That's all about modern age and postmodern age. See you in another video. Till then, bye.